So friends, welcome to this podcast. This morning, we're going to be talking about the situation in Gaza and Palestine, the West Bank. And I have with me Sahar Francis, who is a Palestinian human rights lawyer, the Reverend Ashraf Tanuz, who is the pastor of the Lutheran Christmas Church in Bethlehem, and the Reverend Dr. Graham Adams, who is a lecturer at Luther King House here in Manchester. Friends, I thought it'd be useful to explore whether there are parallels between what's going on now in your part of the world and in South Africa in 1985. That was when the Kairos document emerged out of the struggle in the townships. There was a state of emergency. The South African apartheid regime had sent soldiers and gunships into the black townships. People were being arrested and detained without trial. Children were being born in detention. Children who were throwing rocks at military vehicles were being arrested and held in solitary confinement without access to lawyers, without access to families. They were being tortured, burned with cigarettes. It was an absolutely appalling time. And the Kairos theologians gathered in the township to reflect theologically on what was happening. And what they said was that this was a Kairos, this was a God moment. And the most important thing for them about it was that the Kairos was a time when everything, the truth of everything was revealed. In other words, it was no longer possible to hide the reality that was there. And I just want to read you a quote from the from the preface to the Kairos document. They talk about the crisis, and they say a crisis is a judgment that brings out the best in some people and the worst in others. A crisis is a moment of truth that shows us up for what we really are. There will be no place to hide and no way of pretending to be what we are not in fact. At this moment in South Africa, the church is about to be shown up for what it really is. And so no cover-up will be possible. What the present crisis shows up, although many of us have known it all along, is that the church is divided. More and more people are now saying that there are in fact two churches in South Africa, a white church and a black church. Even within the same denominations, there are in fact two churches. In the life and death conflict between different social forces that has come into a head in South Africa today, there are Christians, or at least people who profess to be Christians, on both sides of the conflict, and some who are trying to sit on the fence. And I hope that we're able to have a look at what's happening in your towns and in your communities, and also how we as Western churches are responding to those of you who are our Christian sisters and brothers. And I just want to finish the quote here. Does this prove that Christian faith has no real meaning or relevance for our times? Does it show that the Bible can be used for any purpose at all? Such problems would be critical enough for the church in any circumstances. But when we also come to see that the conflict in South Africa is between the oppressor and the oppressed, the crisis for the church as an institution becomes much more acute. Both oppressor and oppressed claim loyalty to the same church. They are both baptized in the same baptism and participate together in the breaking of the same bread, the same body and blood of Christ. There we sit in the same church, while outside Christian policemen and soldiers are beating up and killing Christian children or torturing Christian prisoners to death, while yet other Christians stand by and weakly plead for peace. That was South Africa in 1985. Now, there are obviously a number of differences between the two contexts. But what the Kairos theologians go on to identify are three strands of theology. State theology, which justifies apartheid theologically and biblically. And I suppose the parallel there is the Zionist project that Israel is engaged in. Then there's church theology, which deploys Christian concepts such as peacemaking and reconciliation and forgiveness. Interestingly, not the struggle for justice. And then there's Kairos theology, which identifies the need for justice and liberation and freedom. Jesus says, or John's Jesus says, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. What I'm going to ask that we discuss what we have discovered about the truth of things through the events in Gaza for the past, since October the 7th. So I wonder if we can, let's start with what we've discovered about the Israeli state and the Zionist project. What have we discovered so clearly that we didn't know before and can no longer unknow, do you think? I'm quite happy for people just to respond as
well. Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's really interesting to listen, to hear you speaking and quoting, some words from the Kairos, South Africa, and the conflict in South Africa and the apartheid. And I think there are lots of similarities, I want to say, but still, the situation in Palestine has another way of reality. Today, and after hearing and listening to different speeches as done by politicians and church leaders even, and state leaders, we can find out that the international communities are somehow believing this Zionist project when they misinterpret and misuse the Bible to serve their own political agendas. And that was clear, actually, for me and for lots of people. During this last 2 years was very clear. Before that, it was for us as Palestinians clear, but when we were using it and saying it to the friends in the Western societies, they were not believing us. In the last 2 years, it was very clear because lots of Israeli politicians, mainly the Prime Minister and other American politicians and European politicians, they were using and quoting the Bible in order to legitimize what they are doing, to legitimize this project, to legitimize the establishment of the state, to legitimize what's going on, to legitimize the killing, the genocide, the apartheid, and so on. Now, I'm speaking about the last 2 years. And in several speeches, we have heard Bibi Netanyahu speaking about David and Goliath. We have listening to him speaking about first king, second king, and so on and so forth. And we have been recently, it's very fresh, speaking and hearing the Prime Minister of Israel telling someone in the audience at the Knesset, hey, raise up, my dear, I forgot his name. You have the spirit of David, the spirit of Moses, the spirit of Isaiah, and and then the Mr. Trump who said that I'm very happy to be able to solve a conflict which is 3,000 years old. They are trying to legitimize these actions by, as you said, the state theology, by saying that we are the extent of the Israelites. We are the extent of the Judaism and so on. Now, for us as Palestinians, we differentiate between the Zionist project and Judaism and Jewish people and this history. So there is a bit, as theologians, we know that there is a difference between the Israelites and the Israelis of it. So this state theology is very dangerous today. And what really makes me angry that the Zionist project were able to make this fact and reality even within the political atmosphere. That's why Mr. Trump said that I was able to solve the conflict of 3,000 years old. Others are saying the same thing. Others are supporting Israel because they believe that they are the extent of the Israelites of the Old Testament.
Well, I suppose one of the things that we sit here and the first question we want to ask is, but what about the prophets? How can Israel just ignore the whole prophetic tradition and the cry for justice and the judgment on Israel when it fails to live justly? What? Do you know how do they think about these things?
I think the whole problem starts from this conflict that they don't want to admit. For me, the Zionist project cannot sit or be along with this religious perspective and the belief in all of the holy books. At the end, it's all the same. We are believing in same God. We have the same values. But I'll go back a bit for this Kairos call and to remind the whole world that the Palestinian Christians back in 2004 issued their call, the Kairos call, because we cannot, like now, people focusing on what happened on October 23 and all the genocide after, but we Palestinians, whether Christians, Muslims, or Jews, were alerting since ever that this is started in 48, and without discussing really the root causes of the conflict based on justice values, you cannot continue. Then Oslo came. I don't want to talk about the first Intifada and all what happened, but let's start with Oslo. And this was the moment when we Palestinians also believed that this is over and now a new era of peace will show. And after 7 years, they did the second Intifada, and the second Intifada started as a very peaceful resistance with huge demonstrations. What the Israelis did, they started killing people, arresting and destructing, and they used force in very brutal way between 2000 2003. This is why the initiatives like the PDS boycott, divestment and sanction raised, and the Kairos call. Since then, we are talking about apartheid, we are talking about colonialism, we are demanding justice based on the international rule of law, but we were not heard. We were not taken seriously, especially by churches in the Western countries and people that they wanted to continue to believe that Israel is a democracy, Israel is able to be a Jewish supremacist country and can be democratic. Don't you see this contradiction inherent in the basic things? And unfortunately, even after Israel legalized the nation state law in 2018, no one came out to condemn that this cannot be. This is so clear that this is an apartheid regime, that this is going to oppress the Palestinians more and more. But we were saying it because we were living it on daily basis. And this is why Kairos were more and more and more active after all these developments. The difference today that I think you cannot hide it anymore. It's not just that the Palestinians saying it, you're watching the genocide for the last 2 years on daily basis at your homes. So how you can deny this awful genocide anymore? And this is why I think it's a very important moment. It's awakening moment, not for the Palestinians, it's for the world, that now the world, the people all around the world, no matter in which religion you believe, or if you're not religious at all, I think that the goodness, we share this goodness inside us as human beings, that you cannot tolerate killing 20,000 children in this brutal way, or destructing 90% of the houses and hospitals and universities, infrastructure, and erase everything. In the name of what? In the name of religious, in the name of controlling. So I think now it's very clear what we were trying to convince the world for decades now. And it's very important to think, so how we continue. I don't believe that this church theology would work. The Kairos theology will work, because history shows, and not just in the Palestinian context, if you want to repair and reconcile after such serious conflict, if it's not based on justice, it will not last. The key point here is the justice, not just the forgiveness. Forgiveness will come, but first you have to do justice with the people, and then they will be able to forgive. Then they will be able to deal with their suffer, and they can forgive, and they can share, and they can continue in their life.
Yeah, thank you. We're going to come back to explore that Kairos theology and justice more fully. But I'd like to bring in Graham at this point. Graham, we've sat seeing this played out on our TV screens, and I think the big question is, why has it taken so long for people to recognize what's going on? It's how many deaths does it take till he knows that too many people have died, Bob Dylan said. And he's right. Why? What is it about our kind of national psyche, our theology, our church, our kind of church personship, whatever the proper noun is, that means we've bought the Israeli narrative and been so resistant about recognizing what's actually happening?
Yeah, so many things that you've both been saying reminded me actually of when I went on a study tour of Israel-Palestine back in 1999, so now quite a long time ago, but we were shown around by a fantastic rabbi who was expressing his shame of what his country was becoming. And partly that he said, my understanding of what Zionism was meant to be was about creating a light to the nations, and instead it's become a single issue state focus on one thing, the demonization and marginalization of Palestinians. And so, I mean, that reminds me that, so within Israel, there are these multiple stories. It's not all one story. There are these multiple things, but one has supremacy in itself. And it also reminds me that, in terms of this truth that we're being led into, but it's not only the truth will set us free, but we're being led into it. And so none of us quite have grasped it yet. But the problem is, of course, that the imperial version of truth, the Christian Zionist version, that kind of Zionism within Israel, which already knows the answer to what it's for, and it's just closed to other options, to other stories. It just has no space for listening, for attentiveness, for empathy. So although when we try to find the logic for it, it's kind of like we're trying to understand, well, why aren't they referring to other bits of scripture, like the prophet and so on? That's not really part of their story. To kind of, that they have a self-referential logic that we kind of can't quite penetrate. It's already convinced itself. It's got its propaganda. It's self-contained. It's got no space, as I say, for listening or understanding. And partly, my increasing sense is that that's partly because of intergenerational trauma that makes it so hard to do that. But other communities are also bearing intergenerational trauma and are seeking listening. And it's why one community or one part of one community can manage to open up and another can't. And it's that struggle that's so difficult to understand from outside because we don't bear those same scars and wounds. But we sort of try to make judgments and try to understand what's going on from a sort of an aloof place. But that sense, I mean, the Kairos document is also really clear, isn't it, that state theology is self-contained and closed and tidy and sorted.
Yes.
And that church theology is nice and tidy, whereas the prophetic theology is a process, an unfolding. It's not just we now see everything. It's that we see everything through action, and then action helps us see more. And there's a sort of process to it, and an unveiling that comes through the struggle. And it's messy. It creates tension. It creates awkwardness. And that's partly why the church doesn't like it, because it forces us to see things that we didn't want to see. It forces us to ask questions we didn't want to ask. And so it's no wonder, I think, that we've bought into the tidiness of a sort of Israeli propaganda, because it's much more convenient for us. It means we don't actually have to do things or make choices. But actually, now that we start to see the reality more, we're kind of forced to confront reality and our own British history and complicity, and the way the church has been silent.
But I still come back to the fact that we buy it. It's not just that it's self-referential and it's enclosed, but it's an Israeli story, and therefore instinct says it should be strange to us, and yet we're actually buying the story, or have done for an awfully long time, and I wonder why we do that. I wonder why we don't say, well, yes, I can see your point of view, but, I couldn't possibly share that. I mean, what was it like for you folks watching the reaction to the genocide of the international Christian community?
This is something, this has been, making me lots of pain, because the moment, it happened.
Yeah.
Okay, as Palestinians and as Palestinian Christians especially, I felt that I'm left alone. I felt that I am naked. Nobody is covering. So that's why, as Palestinian Christians today, we chose to take the lead alone. We chose to fight alone. And to be honest, I had problems, praying the Lord's Prayer in the beginning of the war until today even. I'm having difficulties praying the Lord's Prayer. You know why? Because it starts with our Father. And I'm asking myself, I'm wondering, how come other Christians and other churches all over the world pray the same prayer I am praying, and saying with me at the same time or in different times, but on Sunday, our Father who art in heaven. The moment we say our Father, there are relationships created, spiritual tidings. The first relationship is a relationship between us, human being, and God. We are the children of God. God is our Father. That's why we say, our Father who art in heaven. And the second one is a relationship between us as a human being. You are saying our Father in English. I am saying it in Arabic. Germans, Africans, everybody is saying it in their own mother tongue. The moment we say it, it is a Pentecost. It is the Pentecost. The moment we say it, then this is a relationship between us, brothers and sisters in Christ. So then I go to Paul. He says, whenever one of your organ is in pain, the whole body is in pain. So I was wondering, these Christians, brothers and sisters, between brackets, are seeing us as Palestinians, and not only Palestinians, they are seeing us suffering. How come are they able to say our Father and their brothers and sisters in Palestine are suffering? How come? So I had difficulties to pray it and to believe that these brothers and sisters, these churches who are staying silent and not fighting for justice and for peace, how come they prayed? And it's not, theology is theology. I mean, I have sometimes problems with saying state theology, church theology, Kairos theology, moment theology, dispensational theology, replacement theology is theology. Theology is a theology of God, logo, theologo. And it means that we have to love our God and our neighbor as ourselves. This is the theology. This is the heart of Christianity. This is the heart of the teaching of Jesus Christ, and it must be the heart of the teachings in all the churches. Whenever your brothers and sisters in pain, you are in pain. So you have to fight the pain so that you end it. And this is what we have been going through, at least myself, personally. And this is what we have been going through as Palestinians in general and as Palestinian churches in particular. That's why we started to fight. We started to take the lead alone. And we have started to try to show the whole world that, hey, people, you are misleading. You are going astray. Go back to the right route, the right way. And it is Jesus the Christ who fought injustice, who fought the empire so that he wins. And he fought the empire and he fought evil, and then he conquered death.
Let me come back to you on the different theologies versus one kind of theology. Dorothea Zoller, the German theologian, would say that yes, there are different theologies, because she says every theology has political implications, and then she says, "Tell me your politics, and I'll tell you what God you believe in." And I think, so actually for me, what you're saying, you're expressing the same kind of agony that I'd frame for myself slightly differently, which is, at what point do we actually believe in different gods and different Christs, depending on where we are? And Graham, you've done some stuff on Christian identity on this. Is there a point where actually, as Ashraf is saying, when we say our Father, we're not talking about our shared Father?
Oh, huge question. Part of the problem for Christian identity is that it has always been contested, isn't it? And there's never, Christian history is riddled with the church behaving badly. So the church of the Crusaders, the church of the Inquisition, the church of apartheid, the church of slavery, what God were they worshipping? And then there must be all sorts of things that we don't really know we're doing now. So what kind of God are we worshipping now as well? So we're always in that place of thinking we're worshipping God, but actually deluding ourselves. There are always illusions in our theology. It's always a process of sort of unpicking. And so I think it's really helpful in liberation theology to have this strong sense that actually what liberation theology is trying to do is expose our idolatries. So that state theology is actually a state idolatry. Church theology is actually a church idolatry. It's worshipping the wrong thing, but we feel devoted to it. It feels like the sort of thing we should be doing. And it's the same sort of thing that Jesus is tussling with, isn't it, in his time as well? Well, who is this God or mammon? Well, you can't worship both, and yet, of course, we do all the time in so many ways. We devote ourselves to both at the same time, and we collapse the two. We think they're the same. We can't see the difference, but this is part of the struggle of our faith. It's a process of discernment. We're being led into truth, and it's moments of injustice which help to clarify and kind of like force us to make decisions. And it's uncomfortable. But that's part of faith, and sort of to kind of think it's simply a matter of those of us who've got God right and those people who've got God wrong is a little bit too straightforward as well, because there'll be all sorts of things that those of us, even who would try to be in solidarity with others, are still missing things. We're still missing things. So it's an ongoing, messy process, but absolutely crucial and integral to the heart of faith, I think, to understand that pursuit of God as the God who inspires the loving of neighbour is God. The God who inspires closeness to neighbour is not God. But, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So can I ask you about something that the Israeli government deployed really effectively is the accusation of anti-Semitism to any form of criticism of the state of Israel, and so, but also of the conduct of their war in Gaza. What is anti-Semitism and what isn't anti-Semitism in this context?
I think anti-Semitism should be really limited for attacking Jews because their like religious identity. Nothing to do with the criticism of the state of Israel practices, of the colonial project that the Zionist project led. This is a confusion between Zionism as a religious issue connected to the religious practice and the Zionist projects that created the state of Israel. These should be, for me, two separate things, because we lived in Palestine before 48 and in all the Arab countries, Christians, Muslims, and Jews together. This was not anti-Semitism. I am a Semitic as an Arab. Like, I'm coming from the same Sam origins now, so how come you would blame me if I'm criticizing a settler colonial project that is based on replacement, displacement, killing, destruction of the Palestinians, whether they are Palestinians, Christians, or Jews? Yesterday, one of the prisoners who were released in this exchange, he's a Jew. Nader Sadaqa is a Jewish samurai Palestinian living in Nablus. This is not a religious conflict, what we are living there. So this is why, for me, it's very important that all this definition of the IHRA that intentionally were brought back to the discussion, and lots of European countries legalize this in the internal laws. This is so bad. Would be causing more and more problems. It's not gonna protect the Jewish people from Semitism, because you're mixing the political question with the religious question.
I find it ironic that Israel is ready to equate any resistance to the Zionist project with anti-Semitism, and therefore to act accordingly, which they interpret in terms of the suppression, the mass arrests, genocide, etc., etc., and there's this collective punishment that the Palestinian community has undergone because of the actions of Hamas on the 7th of October. And yet, anti-Semitism seems to me a cry to say, you can't punish us for some people. So on the one hand, there's this, we've a policy of collective punishment as long as it's never applied to us in return. Is this, what Ashraf, what's been going on with this collective punishment?
Well, let's put Gaza aside.
Okay.
Yep. And I mean, it's very important what you have said, the collective punishment. Okay. If we trace now back 2 years since the beginning of the 7th of October, okay, since the genocide, the West Bank was all the time silent. And in spite the fact of this silence, we had a silent genocide. We have a silent ecocide. We have forced displacement. There is a program for ethnic cleansing. and for migrating. What did we do in the West Bank? We stay silent. We did not do anything. Gates were installed. We were living, and we are still living, in ghettos. More than 1,204 gates all over the West Bank. More than 150 gates are installed in the Bethlehem area. And these gates are only gate closes with a normal key, but you are not allowed to try even to open it, because if you approach it and you try to open it, you will be shot dead, as it happened with several people. I live in Jerusalem. If I'm little bit late, above 7, if I have a Bible study, and if I want to go back home, I can't go through Beit Sahur, which is, 2 minutes from my office to this gate, because at 7 they close it. Imagine driving, and the moment you arrive, this female soldier, 18, 19 years old, she's closing it, forcing all the Palestinians to turn around and either to take a soily, an off-road, road, and you go up to the mountain, or to force these people to stay to sleep over in their cars nearby the checkpoint or nearby this gate, or to take another road. For me, for example, myself, I have, if it's close, I have to go back either to Bethlehem. If it's traffic, I have to go to Beit Jala. If it's traffic, I have to go to Al-Walaj. So, it's very difficult. So this kind of collective punishment, in spite of the fact that we are not doing anything, non-violent demonstrations we are doing, and even non-violent as well actions. We are just saying, why are you doing this? We want to live, we want to go, we want to work, so on and so forth. I mean, this collective punishment is really something, again, it's a sin.
I would add on this that, and to take it back to the genocide, what makes the genocide a very special crime in the international law is the intention. Like the destruction, the killing, the mass destruction, the erase of the people becomes genocide when there's an intention to erase a whole people or group of the people. And if you review the speeches, the public statements were issued by the president of the state of Israel, by the prime minister, by ministers at the beginning of this war, they all were treating the Palestinians as responsible for what happened on the 7th of October and calling for the mass killing, and the president were describing everyone in Gaza as responsible and as deserve to be killed. So this is reflected the real intentions for the state of Israel toward the Palestinians. This is what we were living and feeling all these decades, but no one believed us that this is the real intention, not peace, not even separation. When they did the wall in 2000, when they built the wall in 2004, it wasn't because they wanted to protect themselves. Why they continued to expand settlements in the occupied territories. The whole project now is so clear than before ever that it's about total erase of the Palestinian people from their land and controlling the land. This is why I think the collective punishment is very essential in order to maintain and continue and be able to finish this project. This is why they continued, as Ashraf said, to implement all these daily violations against the people inside in the West Bank, but not just in the West Bank. The same practice goes for the citizens, the Palestinian citizens of the State of Israel, the collective punishment policies via imprisonment, house demolitions, evacuation of Bedouin communities in the Negev in order to replace them with Jewish towns. Isn't it connected? How we can divide the policies? There's no green line anymore. This green line for those that separates usually between the 67 areas that were occupied in 67 and the State of Israel. There's no green line.
We're going to lose Graham. Graham has to go to another meeting. Graham, thank you for being part of this. Before you leave, is there anything that you'd like to put into our conversation?
I think I've so appreciated learning from you both. It's been so good to share with you. I'm really conscious as well that some of the connections are quite worrying in the UK as well, because of the connections that are emerging between the far right and some of the ministers in the Israeli government and the way churches are being tempted to co-opt and use their Christian imagery and ideas to sort of reinforce some of these things. So there's the horror of what's happening there, and there's the potential scary stuff that's happening here as well. And so it's not a faraway place at all. We are brothers and sisters with each other in a common struggle for justice and freedom for diverse communities that are trying to live out that vision of an alternative world. And so I so appreciate having learned from you.
Can I just ask both of you, and this might not be a question that you can answer, but if you look at the broad international landscape, what we are seeing across the world at the moment is the rise of the far right and of political philosophies and priorities that we thought disappeared after the Second World War and Nazi Germany. And I wonder whether you see a connection that what has happened in Gaza and is happening, the silent genocide that you speak about, Ashraf, could that have happened without this broader canvas of the rise of populism, nationalism, Christian nationalism, far right people advocating that what we need is to get Hitler back, all those sorts of very disturbing developments?
Well, I want to say, I want only to say one thing. Actually, today, people are very aware of all kinds of social media things. The whole world become a small world in this machine. We are all aware of what's happening. Nobody can lie to us and say Israel is self-defending themselves in Gaza, because people are able to see how mass the genocide is, how mass the destruction is, how mass the ecocide is, how mass the ethnic cleansing is, how mass the forced displacement is.
Yeah.
Nobody can hide this reality anymore. That's why lots of people, and here in London, for example, the last Saturday, more than 600,000 were at the street calling to end this genocide. In Spain, in Italy, all over Europe, people are demonstrating and calling to end this genocide and to give the right for the Palestinians to live. You can't now make jokes for these people and lie to them and say no. So that's why lots of intention and lots of conscience is raising, and people are today, aware of what's going on. So that's why such groups, such movements, such people who wants to or who raises and grow up here are growing. So I think this is it has to do with what I've said.
And as a lawyer?
Exactly. I totally agree with you that without the rise of the very right wing and undemocratic and, all these powers of control and hegemony, Israel wasn't allowed to carry on genocide for 2 years. But this is not surprising. The opposite for me as a lawyer, it's the good thing out of all these horrors in the last 2 years is the fall of this mask of human rights, liberalism, and all these standards that the Western governments were selling us for decades, claiming that they are in favor of human rights and protection and justice and standards of how to carry our own lives in our societies. Like it fall, and they cannot convince us anymore that they are not biased, that they are not part of this problem of imperialism and the fact that they were supporting Israel in order to keep the control, not just over Palestine. Like at the end, we are a very small country with we don't have oil, we don't have so many natural resources, but I think it's bigger than just Palestine. Now it's very clear that it's about the whole region.
Yes.
Now it's very clear that it's not related to this small land, but it's about really maintaining the colonialism over the region in a different way. And to be covered as it was covered all the years from the end of the Second World War up till 2 years ago with this human rights in construction and institutions and so on. But I mean, the hypocrisy were very, very clear when you compare between the reaction of the European countries toward the Russian invasion to Ukraine and the Israeli genocide in Gaza. Like, even now, talking about the reconstruction, seriously, you're asking Arab countries to reconstruct Gaza? Who will reconstruct Ukraine? Yeah? Didn't the EU requested Russia to reconstruct Ukraine? I mean, this hypocrisy of double standards and it's, I mean, your people understood it, and this is why they went to the streets. So what we need now is the continuity of this struggle, not just for the sake of the Palestinians, but for the sake of us as humans living in this world, in which kind of a world we want to live. What equality and human rights and dignity and justice means. Is it the same for all of us, you as a British or other nationality, and for me as a Palestinians, or not?
It's this double standard, and it hits in so many ways. 2 weeks ago, there was an attack on my local synagogue, and Kevin and I went to the vigil afterwards, and it was quite heartrending to listen to the pain of the people of the synagogue who had lost two people from their community. 2 people were killed. At the same time, on the news, our Home Secretary was asking people not to demonstrate in London against the genocide in order not to offend the sensibilities of the Jewish community at a time when they were suffering loss. And I'm standing there thinking, can you seriously not see that every Palestinian family in Gaza who has lost people will be suffering exactly the same reaction and trauma?
This is the problem. This is the problem, that for decades you were dehumanizing us, that we are equal, have the same feelings, have the same, that when Israel kills a Palestinian, it's the same. And I think this is exactly the serious problem that states and the media, the mainstream media in the West, actually continued to feed in after the genocide started, denying the genocide and spreading just the Israeli propaganda. And I think what happened in Manchester, uh, it it's not supposed to be blamed the Palestinians. Like, I mean, this act of anti-Semitism came from ISIS or any fanatic group that were supported elsewhere in Afghanistan or in Syria or in other country regions by the same state governments.
Yes.
Like that they were in favor of collapse of such regime or another regime. So I mean, it's in their interest, all this propaganda. And this is why they were requesting not to demonstrate. For me, it's totally two separate things that they can go together, because this is bad, they all should stop, but in equal way.
Yes.
Yeah, I think, as I always say, and as Sahar said, we have to differentiate. Okay. And I think as a Palestinian Christian, I am as well responsible of the protection of the right Jewish and the right Judaism that is following the Bible exactly as it is. And I call everyone to differentiate between Zionist project and the Jewish people who are going to the worship place to pray for God. And I call as well the Jewish communities to pray for God so that the victory of peace and justice prevail, and not the killing and the war and the massacres and the genocide conquer. And it's the same as us as Christians and as Muslims and as all the people all over the world. We pray for God that such violence, the genocide, the anti-Semitism, all these kinds of things ends, because we want to live in a place, in a place where everybody is looked at as the children of God. In Genesis chapter 1, verses 26 to 28, God said, "Let us create the human being in our own image according to our likeness." We are all created in the image of God. Nobody is better than the other. But we are responsible for one another. We are responsible to live in a good life and in an abundant life, so that peace, justice, love prevail on this earth. And this is what I want to call people. And I want to call people to be human beings. What unites us first and foremost, that we are a human being, created in the image of God, again, in God's own life. Everyone is a child of God.
I want to thank you both for a really stimulating and important conversation. As we've examined what is happening and looked for the truth of it, it's been an experience to discover also where God is and where God isn't. It would be lovely if we could carry on this conversation, but you have places to go and other people to see, and we wish you everything of the best in your travels while you're over in the UK and as you go back home. So God bless and thank you both.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thanks.